Data Commissioner, Madam Kassait. We have also Irungu Houghton on her left, who is the Executive Director for Amnesty International. Next to Madam Kassait is Joel Karubiu, CEO KENIC. And last but not least, from Safaricom, Head of Customer Privacy, Sharon Holi.
Just listening into the earlier panel, of course, if we were to contextualize data protection, of key importance is the framework under which data protection is based as a country. And one, of course, is, apart from Vision 2030, if we are looking at policy framework, is the National ICT Policy, the Kenya Digital Economic Blueprint for Africa. And the Kenya Economic Blueprint for Africa is important because if you listen to the conversation around the room is how then do we expand in terms of trade? And that becomes an important conversation for the country. The other one, of course, is the draft digital economic strategy for Kenya, the Data Protection Act, and the Kenya National Digital Plan Master Plan, which was launched by ICTA recently. Having talked about that framework, if you listen to everyone around the room, the concern is how safe are we online? What does it mean for us? From a data protection perspective, I think one of the fundamental things we always have to remember is Article 31 of the Constitution, which really talks about the privacy of an individual. Everyone has a right to privacy for the information not to be exposed unnecessarily. It's that article that makes issues around data protection central to how we do business. One issue, key achievement is having the data protection regulations. 3 sets of regulations, the one on general regulation, the second one on registration of data controllers and processor, and also complaints handling. We also now have our strategic plan, which basically gives us a pathway in terms of where we want to. And in that case, we have 3 pillars. One is awareness, something that has been spoken about here, and something that is a continuous process. The second one is institutional strengthening. That looks around making sure we have the correct set of tools so that they're able to implement the work. And of course, the third one is the regulatory framework. The other one, of course, as an institution, we were able to also launch a training curriculum. With the help of GIZ, one thing we have done is to review that framework which we launched earlier in the year. And the reason is we are seeing continuous need and requests coming to the office. And you know, given the expansion of data protection, we have to ask who else can assist in terms of making sure that training is conducted. In the coming days, this is one of the areas that we will be relooking at and seeing how then we enhance so that we increase awareness and have more institution training on behalf of the data commissioner.
Even as you heard us, Steve spoke about in the earlier session, at Safaricom we're all very mission-led. We're focused on our strategy, and everything that we do is notoriously customer-obsessed. It's focused on what do we need to do to get there. And one of the big building blocks that we have to maintain that unity across our operations is we start with our overall mission to be a purpose-led technology company by the end of 2025. And we take that mission and break it down to every single part of the organization. One of the things that the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner has been quite vocal about as well is making sure that we do data protection impact assessments. And back in 2019, when we had the draft legislation, we actually had a third party come in and help us look through all our operations. Because we must remember, when you're processing personal data, you process it at very many different levels, you collect it at different levels, you store it at different levels. And it's so very, very important. I would urge all my fellow controllers and processors to have a look at your business end to end. Look at it with fresh eyes and make sure that you're actually doing this. And for us, for every new product, every new system, we make sure we also do the data protection impact assessments. When you build your home, you think it's the best home that you've ever lived in. But you need to have somebody come and have a look at it at a regular basis, whether it's your internal audit, where you have external party do independent assurance, because that really does help. All of this, we've talked about awareness, all of us. We all need to get onto the same level of understanding in privacy and protection, And at Safaricom, we invest considerable resources in talking with all of our partners, whether they are our FSI partners, our content service providers, dealers, agents, suppliers.
So the first obvious point really is that, this digital moment that we're in, we are not going to be the beneficiaries of this, even if we see some incremental change in the way that we're able to protect ourselves, in the way we're able to harness the data, in the way that we're able to hold governments accountable to evidence-based policymaking. We are really just forebearers in a long process, and we really need to see the opportunity that we have as citizens and as state officers, and to take that responsibility forward a notch. It is a wonderful moment for a personal legacy, for a generational definition, or a generation to define a landscape that is just impactful, not just within our borders, but across the world. I mean, this is the thing about the digital age, is that what we do in Kenya has an impact on, 180 countries simultaneously, potentially. Amnesty International has been working on digital rights and the right to privacy, but in Kenya, we really woke up to this in 2019, and there were kind of like a series of things that woke us up. The first was, I guess what we would call colloquially, a series of big data grabs by the state. There was the Huduma Number project, there was the census, and combined we saw the state attempt to grab probably about 80 to 90 points of data on every citizen in the absence of a Data Protection Act. Right? This is the most important thing. Now, the second thing that we noticed was that there was a proliferation of interest in mass surveillance technology. In particular, the CCTV policy that was generated and discussed, and for many of us, let me just check a minute. How many of you actually submitted any view, thought, complaint, consideration on the CCTV Act of 2019? It was not an act, sorry, a policy. Please raise your hand. Okay, raise them like you can be seen by a CCTV camera. Okay, just look around, folks, right? These 5 people have really been critical in terms of generating a debate about what does it mean to be videoed simultaneously in real time as you move from room to room, road to road, city to city, right? So we looked at this. We got very interested in the Data Protection Act, and it's just a pleasure to have a Data Protection Commissioner in place, to have an office, to have a strategy, and an increasing profile within the public of its importance and what we need to do to keep the data protection legislation in place and vibrant for all of us. For Amnesty, we see the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner very much like we see the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, or the National Police Service, or the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, or the Commission of the Hour, the Electoral Commission at this moment, or the Witness Protection Agency, right? So I hope you get a sense that we have now moved very clearly from, I guess, what you would call physical rights, or the rights that are contained within the Chapter 4, to really thinking about digital rights as an organization. 31% of the population were increasingly worried about their lives being completely exposed on the internet, right? We also did a comparative regimes study, which looked at several jurisdictions, and we reaffirmed that we have a fairly robust legal framework in terms of the institution of the Data Protection Commissioner, but we need to make sure that the office remains independent, it remains funded, and it remains aggressive.
And that's a commission we're having. I'll be very brief, Alu. And for us, the key thing that we look at is when you're registering a domain, what information do you give, right? Which is handled under something we call WHOIS. And in the WHOIS, we ask your name, your telephone number, maybe your email. Now we find that with our WHOIS today, the information we have is, we call it bad data. Out of the probably 100,000 domains that we have, about 25 to 30% of that data is not accurate data, which is a challenge for us, because then when it becomes a point of maybe we have a dispute, or we're looking for someone, or we need some information from you, we can't find you. So as you're going ahead in terms of registering a domain, what information do you give? What information do you allow us to have? And we've taken measures thereafter that once you give us that information, we redact that information. So it's not available to the general public. Only some information is available. And that is one of the measures we've taken. But from the registry perspective, we need to know you, but we're not going to give you information to everyone else, right? So that's one of the things we've done. Then we've gone in and done an information sharing policy. For KENIC, we have a lot of collaboration with the law enforcement. And I don't know if Irungu was, I saw Immaculate laughing, as she's been put in the law enforcement category. We have a lot of collaboration with the law enforcement officials because there's so much fraud happening in the country today. On the website, on our mobile devices, there's so much happening. They come to us and ask. Someone has said, someone has impersonated me, I need to find them. I look into my registry, all I find is X's, XXXX. The number is, I don't know from where. We can't help. But then you as a citizen are asking us for more help because you're asking the law enforcement officers to try and help you either regain your money or stop someone from impersonating you or cyber squatting. So again, that becomes important for us in terms of the data that is being provided. And I know Immaculate will comment about what data should be collected by who, yes, and what you're using that data for. So as KENIC, that is key for us because then, one, we're asking for your data. We are telling you now and guaranteeing you that we safeguard your data. We just don't give out your data because someone has come and asked for that data. There are processes we have, and that's why we have a policy in place. But then what do we do thereafter? The other one which is relevant for us, and I know this is key because we are going into a month of it.
It's the last one.
Yes. Is about election preparedness in terms of what KENIC is doing from an election preparedness. In the last couple of months, we've been getting people registering domains and saying, I am a politician or I am a candidate. And they are now passing off as the legit candidate. And when you go to that website, the guy is saying, I'm giving this pledge or come and collect money from wherever, and these are being used online. Now, as KENIC, we've taken that to the next level where now we are asking, who are you? How are you doing that? I've had some conversations with IBC on the same, whereby if they can even provide us the last list of candidates, so that we know this is the person who is actually running.
So cyber squatting.
Cyber squatting is big at this moment in time. The pledge has been put online. You're seeing them every single day. There was a conversation about misinformation, disinformation this morning. People are advertising saying, I'm doing X, Y, Z, but that's not the case. Okay. One other thing we've taken up on election preparedness, if we have asked for specific names that we can reserve that cannot be registered. Okay. If you see the Commission on Cohesion talked about Hawapangwingwi and such like hate names, we've also locked that in the registry. Okay. That you cannot actually come and register some of those names, which is just to safeguard our environment as we go into these turbulent times.
Good question. I came across a young person the other day, a young innovator who had set up some kind of service, and which had been getting data from a much larger partner. I can't say who they were, but it's data that that partner shouldn't have been given to him. But he seemed unaware that because he thought he had an MOU with them, he thought it was all fine. Yeah. What is the liability when in this sort of case? You know, who should be, how does everybody in a value chain become diligent in what is they're doing? Somebody.
Hi, my name is Ruben. I work with Apprentice Cloud. It's a tech company. It's a tech startup. I have a question with regard to data protection, particularly organization. Oh, okay, let me try to hurry it up. Particularly with small organizations that take up data. For example, information regarding an event, and you need to record data such as their names, their email addresses, their contacts. And in as much as you're not going to use that data for any particular manner, you're not going to sell it. What is the what's the word? Yeah, what's the regulation with regard to such data?
So my name is Catherine Getao. I'm an ICT elder, as he has explained. So I have a quick question. Yeah. I recently got a telephone call from one of the survey companies, and I agreed to take part in the survey. But during the course of the questions, I sent a complaint to the data commissioner, not during the course. I realized they had a lot of the 80 data points that Irungu referred to about me. They knew my age, they knew my gender, they knew where I lived, and a few other things. At that point, I became disturbed, and I actually tried to question the person about how do you know all this? Because I thought you were calling me blind, and that's why I agreed to take part in the survey.
Yeah.
They terminated the call, after which I emailed the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Where did they get
your
my
data? Yeah.
Kasim joining from Kilifi. He is saying, Madam Kassait, in reference to Article 31 of the Kenyan Constitution 2010, we have of late seen in the media efforts by KRA to put up surveillance systems on taxpayers. Is this not a contravention of the Constitution?
So I think we're moving to a state where possession of stolen goods and the history of that is now moving to this sector as well. And whether it will be a misdemeanor or whether it will be a serious crime, I guess depends on what's the nature of the data breach. But I think we have to treat it now as a as a criminal activity. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think the second issue that relates to Catherine's point really is that where you have big data breaches, that is an even more serious crime. And just with a light touch, sitting here, and of course today is the end day for your taxes, tax returns going, just for anybody who has not done it yet. The idea that KRA would probably be able to ping your phone and say, I can see you sitting in a KICTAnet event and you haven't sent your tax returns, could you please do that now, is a little bit scary, but it is increasingly becoming more possible with the lack of regulation. I think where I would go with this is two things. One is that we need to see data protection impact assessments as the next frontier, where we must get civic capacities to be able to do this effectively and to hold people accountable. The second one really relates to data processors and data controllers. If we do not take this mechanism seriously, then we are going to face many, many more cases like this. And I think just to make it very clear, if your budget is, I think, above 5 million shillings, this is a requirement. Now, it's almost the entirety of organized business, the entirety of organized associational life, nurses' unions, doctors' unions, lawyers' societies, and membership organizations like Amnesty. And we haven't even got to those public agencies that collect data in order to give us services.
I want to acknowledge that some of the concerns raised here are some of the ones under investigation. And I also want to say that like many other institutions, it's a point, some of this data you have to trend with care, given the time of the country we are in. Post that, then we can deal with specifics. Having said that, just going direct to Ben Roberts' concerns, the person who is responsible is the person who collected that information in the first place. Because they're the ones who collected the information, they should have made sure that it was secure and it was not shared.
On the domain name space, yes, there's a lot that's happening from a domain name abuse perspective. First, I'd like to clarify that KENIC deals with only .ke domains. That's something that people tend to forget. There are many generic domains out there in the world, .com, .biz, .net. KENIC only deals with .ke. And I can confidently speak here that we don't have child online abuse sites on .ke, because we do crawls around our system and our domains to see if there's anyone who's actually doing that. And if there's any, then we have partners. We have the Kassait, who we alert immediately to take action. We had partnered with Watoto Watch as well, just to ensure that as anything pops up, then we're able to give a solution around it. I know we do get requests on .coms. We try and look at how can we partner with ICANN and other global bodies to also assist on the same. And we have ICANN offices in Nairobi, who then we can communicate and say, this issue is happening. How can you, at your level, can we have that? So there are binding agreements around the world on how to deal with DNS abuse. But from the .ke perspective at the moment, I can say we are safe, but I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen.
Oh, hello, my name is Wambui Karori, and we're here at Saroba Pan-Afric for the, with KICTAnet for the IGF, Kenya Internet Governance Forum, and I work with Kenya National Association of the Deaf, and the main reason I'm here is because we're doing a digital literacy skills program with the deaf, and I feel like internet governance being among the things that KICTAnet does, advocates for. I feel like with the way technology is evolving and trying to bring the deaf into this side of technology, I feel like data privacy, data policy is something that they need to understand, and I'm here to get all that information and also to network and interact with people.
My name is Elvis Ochen. I'm a student leader at KICTAnet, and I'm pursuing an ICT course. And today I'm very much delighted to be part and parcel of the Internet Governance Forum, because from here we get to learn the technology has increased, and it's high time that we take control of the governance of the Internet.